studied, it was quite clear there was something wrong with it. It didn't seem to fit with other East Javanese graves. And more recent research has established, I think, beyond any reasonable doubt, that the grave was somewhere else in the Middle East, and it was recycled, just early recycling. It was recycled as an anchor on a ship. And other anchor stones have been found which have been treated exactly the same way, with the same sort of hole through them, so you can put a rope on it and throw it inside as an anchor. So this gravestone is completely useless as evidence. It tells us that somebody recycled a Middle Eastern grave and used it as a ship, on a ship as an anchor that sailed to Southeast Asia. The first actual evidence of the presence of a Muslim who dies in Southeast Asia is a grave dated 1211 in the common era from Lamre from the north in Aceh. This is the Sultan Sulaiman bin Abdullah al-Basir. And Lamre is right up in Aceh and dated 1211. Now, at this stage, I think I should say that we're all perfectly confident that there were Muslims traveling through the Indonesian waters of Southeast Asia long before that. There was, for example, a major Arab community in Canton in South China in the 9th century. They cannot have got there except by sailing through the waters of Southeast Asia. So there must have been foreign Muslims in this region from a very early stage in the history of Islam. But this is the first evidence, the grave of 1211, which has got a kind of Islamic kingdom, or Islam is being established as a part of the local environment in Southeast Asia. Then in 1292, so we're still in the 13th century, 1292, Marco Polo, who was the famous Italian navigator, been to China, and he traveled through Sumatra, and touched the north tip of Sumatra on the way home. Now the evidence which he leaves for us in Marco Polo's account is in fact is equivocal. There's uncertainty about some of the place names that he uses. But again, it appears that in the 1290s, in the north coast of Aceh, there were Muslim states. He mentions Fairlek, which is probably Perlak on the northeast coast of North Sumatra. He says this kingdom is frequented by Saracen merchants, by Muslim merchants, so much that they have converted the natives to the law of Muhammad. I mean the townspeople only, he says, for the hill people live like beasts and eat human flesh. He would only have known that by what it was. You imagine the Muslims in the town saying they're all savages up there and they're camels. But that's what he reports. So it looks like an early stage of Islamization. What we begin to see is the first evidence of Islam in the 13th century in North Sumatra. And the first, the man who used to be thought to be the first, was the chap whose gravestone you see here. This is Malik al-Salih. And that's a name I might write up, because we're going to come back to him later. Malik al-Salih. And that gravestone is itself of interest. It is dated, it has his name on it, you can see the writing on there. The Quranic phrases, his name, Sultan Malik al-Salih. This is the first sultan of the kingdom of Samudra. And Samudra itself, of course, means the sea, but Samudra is the name which was later adopted for the island of Sumatra. It's dated 696 in the Hijra era, 1297 AD. Now, the stone itself is of interest. Like other stones we find in these early graves, it's not from a local stone, it's imported, probably imported from India. We know that in India there was an industry making gravestones. But this one is not from Cambay in Gujarat. This is the later graves which come from Gujarat, on northwest India. Gujarat itself is very interesting because it's just going through a process of Islamization itself in this period. So the 13th century, 14th century, we find both Hindu and Muslim Gujaratis in Southeast Asia. So this is the gravestone of Malik al-Salih, 1297. And after that, there's other gravestones which help us to know that there continued to be an Islamic kingdom in this area. The next evidence moves us sometime into the 14th century, and that's from Trengganu in northeast Malaya. Now, the Trengganu stone is very problematic. It is an example of Islamic law being introduced into an decree giving various versions of various rules under Islamic law. The problem is the stone was broken, so we have a partial date at the end, and the date says this was written in Tujuh Ratus Dua. Stops. Dua 20, apa. We don't know what it is. It could be Dua 20 tahun, 12 tahun. So it's very hard to know what the rest of that date was. But in effect, the earliest possible date and the latest possible date put us right into the 14th century. So it's somewhere between 1303 and 1387. And it's in Malay, the Arabic speaking. And I think we're pretty confident that shows a transitional cultural stage. Most of the foreign words in it are Sanskrit.